tranquil blissfulness rest, rule, and abide upon us all. Why don't we continue from our last elucidative, eloquative study regarding the unveiling of the great historical, traditional, dynamic forces that are being manifested in our present world today, not unlike its manifestations in the past, as we watch the unfoldment and the development of the coming of the final crises. Oh, people, I do not want to have to talk the way I do, but unfortunately, this matter of life and transitorial existence on this planet is virtually a matter of life and death. Yea, eternal life or death. And this is why I am compelled to bring before you what I call, with great consideration, the golden option. So you can choose which side you will stand for. Nevertheless, the backdrop of our continual series in this television seminar is the focal upon the New World Order, with the book Daniel and Revelation as the key books to help us and aid us with the proper understanding of the traditional rise and falls of nations, and then ultimately the coming of the great Shabbatocracy, which is none other than the kingdom or the Judahdom of Jehovah. So, why don't we continue in this marvelous, great, controversial study between good and evil, right and wrong, light and darkness, Sunday and Sabbath. Remember the last time I showed you that truth and error, or truth and myth, you may choose the one that you want to call it, will be so closely aligned next to each other that it would be very, very difficult to perceive one or the other, except one has the knowledge of the prophetic truth. And certainly, we know from our studies that in our world at large, there are the reality of absolute truth and absolute non-truth. We know that there are false messiahs and true messiahs, false gods, true gods, false religions, true religions. So this is no strange thing in terms of observing the various conflicts in our world. With all of these ethical, moral kinds of religions and ideologies, there is still no resolution, no permanent reconciliatorial atonements that men ought to make with men to resolve their apparent differences. Nevertheless, truth and error will be closely aligned to each other. So closely that what would come to bear into a choosing of what would be truth and error for these, let's say, closing hours of Earth's history, and that is Sabbath and Sunday. These 2 days will be the final symbols, the final act in the drama, if you would ask, as to what is truth and what is error. All truths and all errors will converge on these 2 days. And I say this to Christendom in particular and world religions in general. Nevertheless, it shall come to pass. And so much so that in our last vociferative study on Jerusalem, that is the concept of Jerusalem, we have discovered, according to the Cushitic Targum, that the authenticatorial city of God, government of God, is called Jerubab el Salam. Okay? And the false government is called the Bab Jerubel Salim. You see how close they come and almost sound? That will be how close truth and error will be. Nevertheless, why don't we move on as we watch the various developments in our world regarding the one world religion, the new world order. I think we have a question here. The question asks, brother teacher, how do you tie sin into the books Daniel and Revelation? Isn't sin supposed to be what we will be saved from? That is a very, very meritorious question, whoever wrote it in. In fact, let me read it over again. Brother teacher, it says, how do you tie sin into the books Daniel and Revelation? Isn't sin supposed to be what we will be saved from? Very, very good question. And I'm going to try to answer this meritorious, elegant question with the best of my anthropological ability, and I'm going to let your personal paracletical instructor, he will teach you. Okay? All right. First of all, very, very few people know what sin actually is. Okay? We look in our, let's say, incriminated world today, the diabolical world, and we see a lot of negative actions and reactions that men are quite capable of exploiting and doing. And we see prisons, we see guns, we see weapons of war, we see bloodshed on every hand, we see fraudulency, we see malpractice in the medical field, we see all of these what we call inequities and unexplanatorial things. And yet, we somehow disassociate and connect these things with the concept of sin. Okay? Unfortunately, we have come so far from Toratological understanding as to what is human nature, what human nature is quite capable of doing, and it really doesn't matter whether you be Christian or pagan or atheist or secular or whatever. Human nature plus human nature equals what? Answer. Human nature. And unfortunately, that human nature is very, very decrepit, very dilapidated. And you know something, people? The Torah, the Tanakh, the Bible, really has nothing good to say about human nature. Did you know that? Did you know that Jeremiah the prophet, the Sabbath school disciplinarian prophet, on one occasion said to the Jews, in fact, the house of Israel, nonetheless the heathen, he said that the heart is evil by nature. It is inconsistent. It is vulnerably evil. Above all things, desperately wicked. Who can know it? Now this is what the prophet Jeremiah says. Now how would Jeremiah know that the heart is evil by nature? How would he know that? He can only know it for himself, people. Really, the prophet was talking about his own heart, because this is the only heart that he knows. He knows nobody else's heart. And this, people, is a kind of a sign that the so-called, what we call good people, the people of God, they all talk like the prophet Jeremiah. No matter how good they may appear to be, they seem to describe themselves, that is the true self, as evil. Would you like to look in the mirror and see yourself as evil? You pro-Jesu fessing Christian claimants? You are supposed to be the ones that is supposed to be expounding and espousing the truth about human nature. But you don't. You love to exalt human nature, which the prophet Jeremiah clearly dethrones. We better watch out. Nim clergy-rodians, you better start telling the people the real truth about physikanthropos, human nature. If you don't, the people one day will come and get you. Oh, yes, they will. You see, people, it is better to tell the truth as you understand it, of course, now, in the present, and let your enemies and adversaries incur their wrath upon you at the moment. And perhaps later on, your nemesis and adversaries will come to you and thank you for telling them the truth in the now, rather than to tell them lies now. And they will heap all manner of glory and ostentatious favors upon you. But later, they will come and get you. So it is better, if you have access to the truth, you better tell them now. So we want to find out what is sin, and perhaps where it had its origin. Let me read something here for you to give us a kind of a foundation. The origin of evil. To many minds, the origin of sin and the reason for its existence are a source of great perplexity. Would we all concertedly agree with that? That the nature, that is the surreptitious, mysterious nature of sin, is a source of great perplexity? That is simply mental disorder? That's what perplexity is. Listen, we see the works of evil with its terrible results of woe and desolations, and we question how all this can exist under the sovereignty of one who is infinite in wisdom and power and in love. This is the question that physicanthropos, human nature, asks. How could there be evil in the presence of the sovereignty of one who is supposed to be infinite in wisdom and power and love? Well, let us try to find out. Here is a mystery of which we find no explanation. Okay? And in our uncertainty and doubt, we are blinded to truths plainly revealed in the Torah, in the Tanakh, which is essential to ultimate salvation. That is, ultimate liberesto, dempta salvatori emancipation. Listen, people, there are those who, in their inquiries concerning the existence of sin, endeavor to search into that which God has never revealed, such as, let's say, the mystery of iniquity, the occult, and etc. And hence they find no solution to their difficulties, and such as are actuated by the disposition of doubt, and cavil seize upon others, however fail of a satisfactory understanding of the great problem of evil, from the fact that tradition and misrepresentation have obscured the teaching of the Torah, the Tanakh, the Bible, concerning the character of Almighty Lord Shagadbat, the nature of his government, Jeru, Bab el Salam, and the principles of his dealing with sin. Listen, people, it is impossible to explain the origin of sin so as to give a reason for its existence. Yet enough may be understood concerning both the origin and the final disposition of sin to make fully manifest the justice and benevolence of God in all of his dealings with this intangible, spiritual evil. Nothing is more plainly taught in the Holy Scriptures, the Torah, the Tanakh, the Bible, than that God, Almighty Lord Shagat Bat, Elo, God Allahim, was in no wise responsible for the entrance of sin. Notice, entrance of sin, indicative that it had to have an origin, a beginning, that there was no arbitrary withdrawal of divine grace, no deficiency in the divine government that gave occasion for the uprising of rebellion. Okay? Listen. Sin is an intruder. Let me say that over again. Sin, with the capital S-I-N, is an intruder for whose presence no reason can be given. It is mysterious, unaccountable. To excuse it is to do what? To defend it. Okay? Listen, people, let me give you the actual nature of the inception, origin, concept of sin, because virtually that is what it is. It is a concept. It is an imagination. It is a fantasy. It is a wishful thinkingness. And I'm going to show you that in substance, in detail, that sin does not essentially exist. Okay, don't drop your coffee on that new rug you have there. Give me a little time to explain what I'm going to tell you. Okay? The sinner exists, but sin does not exist. Let me explain to you what I'm trying to say. First, we must try to understand what is sin. Is it a person? Is it a personality? Or is it an act? What is it? Is it a thing? Is it a place? Is it a person? Well, we're going to find out, people, that sin virtually is a concept, a non-existing concept. You see, sin in the person of Sa Batanbel, which is the devil himself, is this. It is a be God, sin, lie. Let me hear you say, be God, sin, lie. Very good. You see, sin wants to be God. But you see, it is a lie. Did you know that sin is a lie? We call this word sin in Latin language peccati. Peccati is a lie. That's right. We call this word sin in Arabic khatiyat. Khatiyat is a lie. In Greek, hamartia. Hamartia is a lie. In Hebrew, we call this word chata. Chata is a lie. It is a he sin lie. See? He sin lie. Be God sin myth exactly what it is. Listen, people, the reason that sin really substantially and essentially does not exist is because it was, according to the omniscience knowledge of God, it was exterminated, catastrophated, devastated, disorganized, obliterated, annihilated, destroyed, confounded, desolated, demolished, disrupted, eradicated, extirpated, nullificated, dilapidated, sabotaged, wrecked, ruined, and overturned before its existence. Or should I say before his existence? Why? Because Almighty Lord Shagabat is omniscience, all knowledge, omnipotent, all power. You see, he, sin lie, was dead before he was created. And this is one of the reasons why it does not exist. But let me elaborate on that. May I? Muchas gracias. Salamat po. Dankashan. You see, sin in its essence is an idea. As I said before, it is a fantasy. It is a concept. It is an imagination. We may call it the idiosyncrasiology, which is utterly non-existence. Sin says to himself, I am, be above as be God I am. That's what sin says. Now let us ask the question, are there two co-eternal, immortal creators in existence? Let me give you a tautological answer. The answer is no. You see, while a sin-inventor exists, no ifs, ands, and buts about it, the sin-inventor, like an inventor, exists. The idiosyncrasism does not substantially exist. Listen, people, imaginary egotism, vanitorial futility, vainglorious, hortified arrogance, ostentatious, conceitful self-love, complacent, pretentious life exist. All of these things, which we could call qualities and attributes, exist. But I am be above as be God I am, which is sin, does not exist. Okay? Because as we confirmed earlier, there are no two co-eternal creator gods which possess the status of avanatological immortality does not exist. And sin, according to the Sabbath school disciplinarian prophets, wants to be God. Be God, sin, lie, which is a lie. If you read, for example, the book of Genesis concerning the fall of man, what was the offer that was given to unfallen man that tempted him into believing that he, man, could be a co-eternal God? Remember, the sin inventor is the origin of sin. And the sin inventor wants people fallen, decrepit, dilapidated people to have the same mental disorder mindset as he has. Okay? Now, when he started out this campaign of challenging the Creator God, he was cast out of paradise. He was cast out of Shangri-La. He was cast out of the Elysian fields in heaven above because he wanted to be God. And this is what begot-sin lie has brought to mankind. He brought this intangible, inspirational tradition down here to earth. And what happened in the Garden of Paradise, where there was abode of the blissfulness? Man was tempted on the basis that he, she, could be co-eternal with the Creator God. I'm not going to go into the details of the story of Adam and Eve in the garden. But remember, the temptation was, ye shall be co-eternal with God if you would partake of this forbidden fruit. Okay? Let me continue. You see, people, I am be above as be God does not exist. And this is essentially what sin is. Insubordination to holy authority makes a person believe in his own mental disorder that he is a God and he can decide what is moral or immoral, what is good or evil, and etc. Only in this case, it makes him a mortal God. The origin of he, sin, lie is a very, very, and we must respect this, he is a very, very notable, celebrated, sin-venting, sin-intellectual, sin-intelligent being. Let me say that again, because there are thousands of you out there that have absolutely no idea of the spirits that are animating your life to be insubordinate to holy authority. And when I say holy authority, I am not talking about sociological holy authority, simply meaning anthropological or fleshly holy authority. Okay? I'm not talking about the holy authority of a pope in Rome. I'm talking about the subordination to the holy authority of the pope in heaven. For remember, pope means father. And God gives you the power of attorney and deputization to call him pope. Just say, our pope, which art in heaven. Not our pope, which art in Rome. And this is what the New World Order, according to the revelation of Daniel and the book of Revelation, is trying to make known to us. That's right. It's not going to be just a New World Order per se. It's going to be a New World Papal Order. Let me just let you think about that. Nevertheless, going back to the origin of this great sin-venting, sin-intellectual, sin-intelligent being, he is indeed the sin-venter of which no man can stand on equal grounds with and win. He is the Draco Draco simply is the Greek word for dragon. Draco sin vinter. He is the Sa sin Tana vinter. For Sa sin tan na Satana from Greek Satan. He is the Orisin Jin vinter. That is the originator of sin. He is the Ori Draco sin Jin vinter. The O Draco sin Re Jin vinter. The Ori Draco sin vinter. And the Ori Draco Jin sin vinter. He is the Draco Re sin Jin vinter. And certainly, sin, according to the definitions of the prophet Isaiah and the prophet Yechezkel, the book of Ezekiel, is something that came and originated in the brain, okay? The mind. It's a concept, as I said earlier, okay? It is a silent, intangible concept. You cannot hear it. Did you know you cannot hear your mind? The mind is very silent. And this is how the mystery of iniquity began. And the mystery of iniquity said, I am God. See? Now, this is how it is, people. And this feeling, this concept, this pathos has been passed down to physicanthropos. This great image here that you see in the background, it is the representation of every human nature on earth. That's right. Rebadambel. See? Rebadambel. Remember I wrote that on the board some time before. Let me write it again for you. Rebadambel. Mankind. Re. Bab. Dam. Bel. See? See? Rebel here. Rebel. Bab, meaning what again? It means gate or door in Hebrew. Bab Bel. See, the gate of the Lord Bel. And here we'll find Adam. A-D-A-M. See? Adam. Rebadam Bel is what human nature has found itself locked in with the predisposition, the unknown predisposition, the unknown, let's say, propensatorial proclivity to rebel against his maker, and he doesn't know why. And this is why God can look upon Rebadambellian human nature and all of the planetarians and say, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. That's right. Man does not know what he is doing. And this is why the notion, the concept of transcendental abatological faith comes in. See? The whole thing is based on faith, people. Transcendental abatological faith. You ask me, what is abatological? Abatological come from the Hebrew word father, Abba, abatological faith. This was the faith in which Jesus of Nazareth practiced. Okay? May I continue? All right. Now listen, people. The unpalingenetical, transgressorial, sinful, sinning, mortal sinners, ever in his natural predisposition, seeks to remove the 12 retheostraining abnegiogations from his sense of the legidecatheoslation, which seems to him to be the obtheostruction to pro-homogenerational concerns. You say, well, what do I mean by that? Well, you see, people, you see these two tables of stone here? Of course you do. Well, you see, the two tables of stone, by and large, is really the law of man. Now, when I say the law of man, it is the revelation of human nature. Did you know man is a decalogian? He's a legal man by legislatorial enactments. If he was not a legal man being, he could not relate to this at all. See, man at best is a decaslational or decalogian being. And secondly, he could be ascribed as a novalogial being. Novalogian. Novalogian simply means 9 commands, okay? 9 negations, okay? Because not everybody know about this 7th-day Sabbath here, okay? And yet, there are billions on this terrestrial plane know their God according to the light which they are living up to. Okay? Now, let me repeat. Sin does not exist. Let me tell you what exists. It is our strenuous attempts to make it a reality that exists. Let me read that over for you again. I said, sin, in essence, in detail, in substance, does not exist. It is our strenuous attempts to make it a reality that exists. God knows that if we could truly enforce sin, we would. In other words, he knows that if we could be God, we would try to be God. But in order to try to be God, people, you have to eliminate the true God. You have to eliminate the Creator. You think about that. And God knows that if we could truly enforce sin, and sin wants to be God, and remember sin's predisposition says, I am, be above, as be God, I am, which does not exist. It is utterly unattainable. It is non-achievable. No one can accomplish sin's ideals. But let me continue on this. I said before, God knows that if we could truly enforce sin, we would. And he treats our efforts to sin as if we have become a God, which is non-existent, because there is only one God. Okay? What is sin again? Sin in its essence is I am, be above, as be God, I am. Is this true or false? Answer, it is false. Why? Because, as I said before, there is only one Creator God, one eternal God, one God that possessed immortality and no other. And let me tell you the predisposition of the mystery of iniquity that works within our Rebadambellian human nature wants to be God so much that it has to invent philosophy, some kind of concept that the soul doesn't die after you're dead. That's how bad man wants to be God. Did you know that there is no such truth to the natural, aboriginal, native immortality of the soul? Only one has immortality of the soul, people, unconditionally speaking. No man, according to tautological truth, possessed within his Rebadambellian nature the unconditional, aboriginal, native, inherent, natural, native immortality of the soul. To say that, people, and to believe that, you're saying and corroborating with the originator of sin, which told Eve at that tree in the Garden of Eden, ye shall not surely die. You're promoting and carrying that concept throughout your mental disorder or mental disorganizational cerebrational processes. You think about it, people. If man or animal had the unconditional immortality of the soul, this would make man and animals co-eternal with God. Think about it. Listen, if such an animal existed, why does the Bible talk about the somatological resurrection? Somatological meaning the bodily resurrection. Why does it talk about the corporeal resurrection? Huh? That's right, because there is no such thing as the natural immortality of the soul. And to say that, you particularly pro-Jesu, fessing Christian claimants, you are collaborating, known and unknown, some of you know it and some of you don't, with the adversary of souls. That's his dogma. His dogma is to be God. Why? Because he is the sin-venter. He says, be God, I am. I am, be above, as be God, I am. But you see, people, that is a be God, sin lie. It's a he, sin lie. Be God, sin myth. Oh, people, don't try to immortalize your concepts and ideas, philosophies of your ideology of God. And man, Rebadambellian man, has practically immortalized everything that he could conceive of. This is how much he wants to live forever. And we call this unchangeable, unpalingenetical, transgressorial, sinful, sinning, mortal sinners, wishful desire, and that is to save sin. We call this salsinvation. Let me say that again. Salsinvation is what Rebadambelian man wants to save at any cost and by any means necessary. So, I hope that you are learning something regarding human nature, physikanthropos. And I'll tell you another thing, people. In closing, you see these two tables of stone. This is basically what the issue of life is. Did you know all of the troubles and problems that we have in this world is related to these two tables of stones? Think about it. Look in your prison cell life. Why are the people in prison? Why do they, in fact, have to build prisons? Why do the government have to take our tax money to build more prisons? Deductive logic ought to tell you, pro-Jesu fessing Christian claimants, and particularly you nim clergy Rhodians who are not teaching this at all. You know why the society is basically lawless? Is because the clergyhood, the nim clergy Rhodians, are not reinforcing the law of the Torah, the Eseret Hadvarim. They're not even talking about it. So, the transgressorial, sinful sinning, mortal sinner goes on and breaks the laws without a conscience. You see, now you've got to lock up your doors, lock up your cars, buy guns. I'm talking about ministers of the gospel to protect your life and your goods, your material wealth, because you are not teaching what is supposed to be taught, and that is the dispository of the law of God. Listen, people, don't you know that if there is no law, everything would be completely chaotic? There are laws in nature. Violate those laws and see what happens. And yet, we are violating those laws. And this is why we get sick. Go to the hospital. Call the doctor. How many meals are you eating a day? See? And a lot of us are going to have to start getting off of that meat, people. Flesh pots of Egypt. That's right. We have broken the laws of nature. We have broken the laws of physikanthropos. We have broken the laws of human nature. And this is what this is a revelation of. In fact, you could call this what we call Decalogue, the revelation of the Anthropos Satana Theochristos. Because you see, it is a revelation not only of God and Christ, but is the revelation of man and the devil. Think about it. This law, what we call the Decalogue, is the apocalypse, physikanthropo, Theochristos. Listen, people, just based on the first table of stone here, this table of stone reveals who man essentially is. Rebadambel is. Let me tell you what he is. He is a self-worshipping, idolatrous, holy name blaspheming, Sabbath breaker. That's what a man is. If you want to start from the bottom, man, Rebadambelian man, that is physicanthropos, human nature, is a Sabbath-breaking, holy name blaspheming, idolatrous self-worshipper. That's what a man is. And this leads man to parent-hating, homicidal, adulterous, kleptomaniacal, lying coveter. You don't want to accept that, but it is the truth. And until we become cognizant of this fact, as the Spirit of God is right now in the world being slowly withdrawn, people, we have some great and terrible days ahead of us without the Spirit of God in our midst. And we have bruised him, and we have disobeyed him willfully after he has provided us with the power, and we have still transgressed his Torah. Oh, Nimcregerod, come back to the Torah. Oops, somebody tells me that my time is up. Listen, you tune in next time to the golden option. Why? Because the golden option is yours. But also remember, don't curse the darkness. Light the candle. Until next time, shalom, shalom, shalom. Salam, salam, salam. May peace, serenity, and reconciliatorial, tranquil blissfulness